Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to today's lesson. Sorry that I could not be there with you to do this. I need you to have your My Perspective book in front of you and a pencil. So if you need to pause or ask the substitute if you can go get a pencil or your My Perspective book, you really should have a pencil already. And once you have your book, I would like you to turn to page 18. So you guys are going to listen to and follow along, as well as then do a second reading of this poem, Believing, and then you're going to close read and annotate. Remember, your close reading is your underlining, and your annotating is your notes that you write on the side. I am going to take this as a 2-point grade. When I come back into the classroom tomorrow, I will check it. Again, you guys should be on page 18, and we're going to look at the story Believing. Now, I'm going to read it once through, all the way, and then I'll go back, and like I did the other day, I will read a stanza, and then I will pause, and I would like you to pause the video so that you can go back and you can listen to me read that stanza as many times as you want, but I would like you then to annotate and close read that stanza. Hey, here we go. Believing. The stories start like this. Jack and Jill went up a hill, my uncle sings. I went up a hill yesterday, I say. What hill? In the park. What park? Halsey Park. Who was with you? Nobody. But you're not allowed to go to the park without anyone. I just did. Maybe you dreamed it, my uncle says. No, I really went. Get rid of my eraser. And my uncle likes the stories I'm making up. Along came a spider and sat down beside her. I got bit by a spider, I say. When? The other day. Where? Right on my foot. Show us. It's gone now. But my mother accuses me of lying. If you lie, she says, one day you'll steal. I won't steal. It's hard to understand how one leads to the other, how stories could ever make us criminals. Go to page 19. It's hard to understand the way my brain works, so different from everybody around me, how each new story I'm told becomes a thing that happens in some other way to me. Keep making up stories, my uncle says. You're lying, my mother says. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between all that I'm told and memory. Okay, so this kind of goes with some of the poems that we've already read in the excerpt from Brown Girl Dreaming, where she's making up stories, right? We've talked about this already. And I want you to think, how does mom feel about her stories? What does mom say? And then think how her uncle is feeling about her stories. Do mom and the uncle agree with Woodson, how Woodson's stories are? You know, do they both think she's lying? Does one enjoy the stories and one doesn't and thinks they're lying? Like, those are the kinds of things I want you to pay attention to when you're writing your notes, okay? So let's look back on page 19 again. And I'll talk about this again when I get to this stanza. But there are notes for close reading for lines 23 through 38. Now, 23 starts on page 18, right here where it says, but my mother accuses me of lying. And right before I get to that stanza, I will go back and I will look at this close read, okay? So now get your pencil in hand and let's get ready for some close reading and some annotating. Again, when I am done reading a stanza, I'm going to pause. I want you to replay it if you need to, but you are expected to be underlining, circling, making notes in the margin. Here we go. The stories start like this. Jack and Jill went up a hill, my uncle sings. I went up a hill yesterday, I say. What hill? In the park. What park? Halsey Park. Who was with you? Nobody. But you're not allowed to go to the park without anyone. I just did. Maybe you dreamed it, my uncle said. No, I really went. Okay, I want you to pause, and I want you to do your close reading and your annotating. Okay, so hopefully you paused and you did do your annotating. So I'm starting here on line 14, and I'll read this stanza to line 22. And my uncle likes my stories I'm making up. Along came a spider and sat down beside her. I got bit by a spider, I say. When? The other day. Where? Right at my foot. Show us. It's gone now. Okay, I'm going to pause. I want you to go ahead and do your close reading. Again, listen to it again if you need to. And think about how her stories are being perceived by her uncle or her mom. Okay, so let's keep going. We're starting with line 23 now, but I want to go on to page 19. I want to read the stuff in the notes column, okay? So when you're annotating, when you're doing your close reading, in lines 23 through 38 of Believing, mark words that show how the poet's mother reacts to her stories. Then mark words that show how her uncle reacts. We already started talking about this. You should have started to think about this already. Then I want you to answer the question, and even if you write your answers here next to the notes part, that's okay. Why does the poet include these different reactions? Why do you think she did that? And then how does the contrast between how her uncle and her mother feel help you as the reader better understand the poet or Jacqueline Woodson's struggle in this poem? All right, so I'm going to go back to line 23, and I'm going to read down to line 36 before I have you do your annotating. But my mother accuses me of lying. If you lie, she says, one day you'll steal. I won't steal. It's hard to understand how one leads to the other, how stories could ever make us criminals. Top of page 19. It's hard to understand the way my brain works, so different from everybody around me, how each new story I'm told becomes a thing that happens to me in some other way, to me. Sorry, I read that wrong. All right, I want you to go ahead and pause, and I want you to do your close reading, your underlining, and then I want you to make some notes. Think about that stuff that I read over here in the notes section for the question and the conclude and then annotate, right? Now, in one stanza, you heard how the uncle feels. In this stanza, you heard how the mom feels. All right, go ahead and pause, and then I'll finish it up in a minute. All right. So, our last 5 lines of the poem, it starts on line 37. Keep making up stories, my uncle says. You're lying, my mother says. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between all that I'm told and a memory. Okay, I want you to pause and I want you to annotate those. How does the uncle feel? How does the mother feel? This is going to be a test question that on the test that we take next week. Okay? So how do they feel? Okay. So now I want you to go back and re-look at this poem. Each of the stanzas that I read, so here line 1 through line 13, you should have at least 1 or 2 annotations, notes that you wrote on the side. You should have quite a few things, probably 5, 6, 7 things underlined or circled. Then when we get down here to lines 14 through 22, again, you should have 1 or 2 annotations or notes written on the side. And you should have, again, probably 3, 4, 5, 6 things underlined or circled. Then from lines 23 down to 36, we're now hearing how Mom feels about her stories. So again, you should have 1 or 2 annotations, probably 2 really, and you should have like 6, 7, 8 things underlined, circled. And then the last 5 lines from line 37 down to 41, you probably should have, 3, 4 things underlined or circled, and you should have at least 1 note on the side. I want to hear how you might feel if you were Jacqueline Woodson and you were telling these stories. Make those connections, guys, because it helps you understand what you read better and deeper. Okay? So double check your work. Again, I'm going to check it when I come back tomorrow, and it's going to be a homework grade worth 2 points. I'm not going to grade as lenient as I did on Gifted. So I'm looking for some significant marks in your book, okay? You do not have any questions that you need to answer for this poem. I do want you to make sure that you have answers for questions 1, 2, and 3 in your book on page 19. We did talk about those. You need to make sure they are complete sentences where you restated the question in your answer. And when you are done with all of that, you can go ahead and close your My Perspective book. And then I would like you to do I Ready. I'm going to assign you another lesson, and that is what you're going to do for the remainder of the class period. Okay? All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you later.